The cafeteria of Ridgewood High buzzed with the usual storm of chatter, laughter, and trays clattering against tables. To most students, it was just another noisy lunch period filled with gossip, arguments about sports, and scrolling through phones under the table. But to Emily Carter, the new girl, it was the loneliest place in the world. She had arrived at Ridgewood only a week ago, her family having moved after her mother's passing, hoping for a fresh start. She was quiet, reserved, the kind of girl who sat at the farthest corner of the cafeteria with her lunch untouched, eyes glued to her notebook, sketching quietly while the world around her erupted in noise. Her silence was like a beacon to the wrong kind of attention. Across the room sat three boys, Tyler, Jason, and Rick, the self-proclaimed kings of the school cafeteria. They thrived on laughter, but not the good kind. Their laughter came at the expense of others, aimed like arrows at whoever seemed weakest. To them, mocking people was a sport, and humiliating someone in front of the crowd was the ultimate entertainment. The moment they noticed Emily, sitting alone with her plain sandwich and old, worn backpack, they knew they had found their next target. The first days had been small, snide remarks when she walked past, a sudden shoulder bump in the hall, whispers followed by giggles. But today was different. Today, the three boys were bored, and boredom always led to cruelty. Jason spotted her sitting alone and nudged Tyler with a wicked grin. Look at her, acting like she's too good for anyone, just sitting there like she's invisible. What do you say we fix that? Rick chuckled. Yeah. Let's give the new girl a proper Ridgewood welcome. As Emily flipped through her sketchbook, her hand trembling slightly from the awareness of being alone in such a crowded space, she could feel eyes burning into her back. She had grown used to it. Silence and invisibility had always been her armor. But what she didn't know was that invisibility was exactly what attracted predators like them. The boys stood up together, a wall of arrogance and cruelty moving toward her table. Other students noticed immediately. Some whispered, some smirked, and others looked away. No one ever interfered when the cafeteria kings made their move. It was safer to stay out of their games. Tyler, the tallest and loudest of the three, was the first to speak. He slapped his hand against Emily's table so hard that her sketchbook jumped. "Hey, new girl," he sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. "Why don't you show us what you're hiding in that little notebook? What are you drawing? Unicorns, rainbows?" Jason leaned in, his face inches from hers, grinning like a wolf. "Or are you writing love notes to yourself, since no one else wants you?" Rick, not to be outdone, reached over and snatched her sandwich, tossing it onto the floor. "Oops, guess you're not hungry." The cafeteria erupted in laughter. Students at nearby tables pointed, some covering their mouths, others openly laughing. Emily felt the sting of tears burning her eyes, but she forced herself not to let them fall. She had promised herself after her mother's death that she wouldn't cry in front of anyone ever again. Crying, she had learned, was an invitation for cruelty. She reached out quickly to grab her sketchbook, but Tyler's hand shot forward, snatching it away. He flipped through the pages carelessly, and his smirk faltered for a moment. Emily's sketches weren't childish doodles. They were powerful, intricate, filled with sharp lines and fierce imagery. Warriors, lions, storms. They were the drawings of someone who carried storms inside her. Tyler blinked, then laughed, though it was slightly forced. "What is this? You think you're some kind of artist? These are creepy." He held up a sketch of a girl standing alone against a crowd, her eyes blazing with fire. The cafeteria howled with laughter again. Jason crumpled one of the pages and tossed it onto the floor. Rick leaned close, whispering just loud enough for others to hear. "She probably draws because she has no friends." Pathetic. Emily's fists clenched beneath the table. Her heartbeat hammered against her ribs. She had been through this before. Different schools, different bullies, the same script. But what these boys didn't know was that beneath her quiet exterior lay something none of them expected. She had grown up in a home where her father, a military instructor before his death, had taught her resilience, self-defense, and discipline. She had spent years training in martial arts, not for recognition, but because her father believed the world was cruel and she needed strength to survive. She hadn't used those skills in years, keeping them buried beneath her quiet drawings and silence. But now, as the boys laughed louder and the cafeteria watched, she felt something stirring inside her, a storm her father had once told her never to ignore. Tyler tossed the sketchbook toward Jason, and in that instant, Emily stood up. Her chair screeched against the floor, silencing some of the laughter. She wasn't tall, she wasn't loud, but something in her stance made a few heads turn. Her eyes locked onto the boys, and for the first time since she had entered Ridgewood High, her voice cut through the cafeteria. "Put it back." The words weren't shouted. They weren't weak either. They carried a weight that made Jason pause for just a second, then laugh nervously to cover it up. "Or what? You gonna cry? You think you can tell us what to do?" Tyler smirked and stepped closer, his hand shoving her shoulder lightly, testing her. "Yeah, new girl. Make us." The cafeteria held its breath. Something in the air shifted, a tension that everyone felt but couldn't name. Emily's hand shot out with lightning speed, snatching her sketchbook from Jason's hand before he realized what had happened. The move was sharp, precise, and it made the boys blink in shock. For a split second, they weren't laughing. Emily tucked the book under her arm and looked at them, her jaw tight, her eyes no longer avoiding theirs. "I said put it back," she repeated, her voice firmer this time. Tyler's smirk faltered. Jason looked at Rick as if waiting for him to do something. Rick stepped forward, trying to push her again. But this time Emily didn't move back. She planted her feet, her stance steady, her eyes unflinching. It wasn't a fight yet, but every student in that cafeteria could feel that it was seconds away from becoming one. For the first time, whispers shifted. The crowd wasn't just laughing anymore. They were curious, uncertain, waiting. The three boys had no idea that the new girl they thought was weak was seconds away from showing them strength they had never imagined. The storm inside Emily was awake, and the cafeteria was about to find out what it looked like when silence finally broke.